Hello, and welcome to A Wealthy Life. My name's Vicky Boucher, and I promise you are going to love this episode. It's going to completely blow your mind and help you see through the marketing mist that traps us all, surrounds us all, has it in our, we're in its illusion. We're in those very clever marketing people's pretend world that they've made for us. We're going to be talking spending habits, and whether it's tech or tack, everything you buy costs you time as well as money. And that's what I want you to see today. I want you to recognize that a pair of shoes is worth a long weekend, that latest tech item you bought is a week off work. I want you to think about the whole culture of buy now, pay later, and the marketing that goes with us. It drives us to fill our houses with stuff at the expense of filling our minds with memories. Again, depending on where you are in your life, this isn't a judgment, and your spending habits over your life will change when you're first young and you're earning a lot of money and you don't have any responsibilities, to use that very old word. You can afford to spend more on things that make you happy and go for it, because there's going to be a time in your life where you've got a lot more responsibilities, and actually some of those responsibilities, possibly children, are going to demand your money, and then there won't be a lot left for you. And also, if you think about it, the spending habits that we have now compared with our parents and our grandparents, those habits have changed dramatically over the last 40 to 50 years. And the reason is the growing influence of sort of psychological marketing strategies to separate us from our hard-earned, hard-worked-for cash. Understanding how customers make buying decisions greatly increases the likelihood of a sale. In I think it was the mid-80s, there was a man called Robert Cialdini, and that's how I pronounce him, Cialdini. I'll put a link in the bottom for you. And he wrote a book called The Psychology of Persuasion, and basically he had 6 principles. So reciprocity, which means if I do something for you, you've got to do something for me. Consistency, which means doing it again and again and again. Social proof, do others approve of this? Liking, we don't tend to buy things from people that we don't like. Particularly, we went out today to make quite a significant purchase, and when we went out to make that purchase from a shop that we'd already decided that we wanted to make the buying from, the salesperson was a different salesperson, and the first salesperson had actually been part of us wanting to buy from that shop. The second person, we nearly thought twice about whether we were going to buy there from, because they didn't enable us to like them. Liking plays a big part in this. Authority, is there a feeling of importance about this thing, or superiority about this thing? And then, of course, scarcity. Is it the only one? Are there only 10? Is it limited edition? Is it only for a short amount of time? Again, part of the reason for the buying decision today was that there was an offer on and the offer was going to run out. So all of these, and I'm not immune to them, all of these are key to influencing our decision-making process, and therefore the likelihood of a sale and the sales process that takes place. You want to look at more, I'll put the link to Cialdini's book in the bottom, and then once you know how to spell his name, you can go off and have a little Google about it. This podcast, for example, is about consistency. So every week a new podcast is launched. It's also social proof because it's on Apple or YouTube, or it's seen on Facebook. And so that's social proof, not social media proof, but social proof because other people are liking and listening and all of that sort of stuff. Hopefully there's a small sprinkling of liking in this if you've been listening, and we're now on the 6th episode, hopefully you're still listening because you like what you hear. And all of that is in a sense part of my marketing strategy. Potentially books and podcasts could be seen as a sign of authority. Limited editions are seen as a sign of scarcity. Reciprocity could be when a business asks you to buy their product, and in a return, they're going to plant a tree or make a donation towards charity, or maybe they gave you a free gift first, and then you feel sort of obligated to buy on the other side. So we're all doing it all the time. We're all experiencing it all the time. The question is, have you recognized the things that are influencing your buying decisions, or do you buy unconsciously? And are you unaware of the role that the decisions that are being influenced are making in your life and ultimately in your wage packet or your bank account? So let's have a little look at this term, unconscious consumerism. So consumerism is the process of buying, and unconscious consumerism is the process of buying without thinking what you're buying about. So we are frequently told to make a shopping list when we go to the supermarket, so that when you walk around, whether you're a Tesco's or a Waitrose or a Lidl or wherever, you've got a piece of paper or a note on your phone, and you only buy what you need because you've checked the cupboards at home and that's what you buy. How many times have you gone to the shops and come home to find that you've just bought your 3rd cucumber? I mean, that's me. Obviously, maybe that's not you, but buying things that you don't need because you didn't check. How many times have you come back with 2 or 3 packets of something because it was on an offer? So you've bought, 3 packets of oranges when you really only wanted 4 oranges, and now you've got 12 oranges, but there was an offer which is, if you bought 2 packets of oranges, you'd get 1 free. How many times have you gone to the supermarket to buy food and come out with clothes or a tea towel or a pot or a mug or anything else that you didn't consciously go in to buy? And that is because the way they have laid out the store is to present you with offers. The end of a row is a very important shelf where they'll display offers, and then you'll walk down the center aisle and you pick up things you don't need. How many times have you been on social media? Again, this could be me, and I have stopped this honestly. Looking at Instagram or maybe Facebook, particularly when you're doing it on your phone, because in the thread, there will be these adverts, and these adverts are put there obviously because the companies have paid for the advertising, but as a way of lulling you into buying them. And frequently, and I see this a lot on Instagram, that the adverts have how many people have liked it, how many people have commented. So not only have you got the advert, but you've got the social proof attached to the advert in that people are commenting and leaving comments about the product that they bought, which I think is really interesting, because when I've bought a product, I can never find the advert again to be able to go back and leave a comment on it. So it makes you wonder. But, like so many million or hundreds of thousands have liked and maybe even bought or commented on this advert about this specific product. So that's where we're being tricked into buying things, and we all do it. It's very difficult to get away from this. And what's wrong with that? Well, nothing really, isn't it? Isn't it quite nice to see something that you didn't know about and then buy it and then have it in your life, and it makes your life better? I mean, I have got the molds for snow penguins, snow hearts, and snow ducks. I can't say that they've actually improved my life right now on the basis that it hasn't snowed, but I absolutely know that when it snows, I'm going to have the best snow little creatures out in the garden ever. And with a bit of luck, it's going to make my grandchildren laugh. But I've spent that money. I didn't need those things. Worse, they're plastic and they came from America, and it was totally environmentally unfriendly. But it made me laugh at the time, and I hope one day that it will snow and it will make me laugh when I get to play with them, if I can still find them. And so there's nothing wrong with that. Where it becomes a problem is when you are unconscious about your consumer habits, when you suddenly notice that you are constantly clicking and buying. Do you play games on your phone? How many times do you buy extra coins or tokens to enable you to play? And it's so easy because it's just a click. Do you play any of those gambling games? I had one client and he was very wealthy. And when we spoke about it and we looked at his spending habits, it was Amazon. It was just buying stuff on Amazon, to the point where we joked that when they had a family barbecue or a Christmas party, they were going to have to invite the Amazon delivery driver because he came around the house more often than their friends did. It was the ease of adding things to your basket, or even buying with one click, so you don't even have to add it to the basket and think about it. You can just buy it and have it right now. And that's what's wrong, when you are almost buying things so quickly that you're not able to fulfill the natural thought process that needs to go with a buying decision. And that's also why you can end up with post-purchase regret, where you've gone so quickly through the buying process that you're now at a point where you're regretting the things that you've bought. Maybe when the bank statement comes in or the credit card statement comes in, maybe when half a dozen things arrive on the doorstep and you think to yourself, goodness me, how much stuff did I just buy there? Or when you really are starting to think about getting a storage unit to put all the stuff that's around your house in. So there is a problem with unconscious consumerism. Consumerism is part of our modern world. Not being aware of your spending habits is dangerous. And so is there a better way? Well, of course there is. It's conscious consumerism or conscious spending. And the benefits of conscious spending is that you shift your thinking so that a boring budget isn't a boring budget anymore. It's a decision-making tool that helps you identify opportunities and threats to your wealth plan. It's identifying things that will speed up or slow down your opportunity to live a wealthy life. Conscious spending won't limit you. It will just help you make better decisions. So really, all conscious spending is doing is that when you get that urge to press buy, you pause, you maybe hold things in your basket. Now, of course, if they're actually very clever marketeers, they'll be sending you emails going, oh, you put some things in your basket and you haven't bought them yet. Another one of my habits. I'm clearly revealing far too much about myself, but you probably noticed that I am a gardener and I love my gardening. So over the lockdown period, when you could get things shipped to you, I signed up to some seeds and plant companies, and I get a little collection of emails come into my inbox, and I click through and, oh, this is pretty, look, the seeds, this is unusual. I ended up with 25 varieties of tomato seeds and therefore 25 varieties of tomato plants by the time I'd finished with them. But then also probably another couple hundred plants that I didn't need that I had to give away. And I sold some in the front garden to raise money for the local community centre. So what's wrong with that? Well, nothing in a way, because I'm lucky that I could afford to buy 25 different packets of seed plants. But was that going to help me have a more wealthy life? It certainly gave me some fun, and we've been through a couple of years that have been stressful. So, you know, why not do what you love? But what if you can't afford it and the things that you're spending your money on aren't actually enriching your life? And now what you could do is use a spreadsheet as a way to go, you know what, if I look at the money that's coming in, and I'm only very briefly going to mention the last episode where it was about looking at whether your income is more than your expenses, the money in versus the money out. if you've got more money coming in than you've got going out, and you can say to yourself, okay, here's 1,000 coming in and there's 750 going out, I've got 250 left, then you can think to yourself, what do I want to spend that 250 on? And maybe if what you really want to do is have a holiday, you might choose to save 200 of it and only spend 50 of it. So it's not about limiting you, it's about empowering you to make a better decision. What do I really want to buy, instead of maybe buying things that I didn't think I really wanted, particularly didn't even know I needed, but now I've got them. I've got to find somewhere to store them or do something with them. But that money that I gave has now gone, and we're going to come to that in a minute. So conscious spending doesn't limit you, it just helps you make better decisions. And I just want to explain a little game that I used to play with clients and audiences when I did more live talks. And this is about the idea of doubling. So if you take 1 and you double it, it becomes 2, 2 becomes 4. If you run that forward for 21 times of doubling, that 1 becomes 1,048,576. So 1 doubled to 2, doubled to 4, 4 to 8, 8 to 16. It's really slow for about the first 14, 15 sets of doubles. Then all of a sudden, you're doubling 200 to 400 to 800, and the numbers start rocketing. And before you know it, in 21 doubles, you've got over 1 million. Now, if that was £1, and on day 1 you had £1, and a bit like the Hans Christian Andersen story of the elves and the shoemaker, you made that 1 pair of shoes in that story equal 2 pairs of shoes, and 2 pairs of shoes equal 4 pairs of shoes, and so on. And all of a sudden you could have 1 million. What could you do with that opportunity? Now, let me make that £1 turn into a cup of coffee. So you just popped into town, or you're on your way to work, and you bought a takeaway coffee. And if you're really lucky, depending on where you live and who you buy it from, that cup of coffee cost £2.45. Now, if you double that and double it and double it and double it, in 3 weeks, you've got 2.5 million. But you haven't, because you gave away the 2.45 to the coffee person. And they're probably only an employee, so you didn't even give it to them. It's not like you gave it to an independent coffee business, unless you did. But now you've given away not only 2.45 for a coffee, 21 days, but you've given away the opportunity to double the 2.45 for yourself. Because at that point of giving away money in the process of purchasing, you are giving away the opportunity for you to double that money. Now, okay, let's pause there for 1 second and just declare, I have not as yet found a savings account that I could put in £1 and have it equal £2 the next day and £4 the day after. And if any of you do know where there is one of those accounts, do me a favor and drop me an email, but don't tell anybody else, so that we can just put some money in there and then we'll let everybody else know afterwards. I'm only joking. I would seriously consider that. And while I don't double my money on a daily basis, one of the reasons I invest is because I want to leverage my money and increase the opportunity of my money to make money for me. So there are 2 fundamental messages here. The first is that if I gave you £1, $1, a yen, and then you gave that to someone else, they now have the potential to double that money themselves, and your chance to double the money is permanently lost. Okay. Second is, if you gave your money to get that £1, $1, yen in the first place, then you have also not only lost the time you spent to make the 1, you've lost the opportunity to make the 1 into a 2, 4, 6, etc. And if we make the maths nice, and I know how you love a bit of maths, and we say, for example, that you earn 100 units of currency, in whatever currency that is, we'll just say pounds because that's where I am. You earn £100 a day. Now that might be more than some people earn, that might be less than what you earn, but I'm just using the number 100 because it's going to make the maths nice. And you wanted to buy something that cost 100. In the first place, during the process of buying the thing for 100, you are transferring the ownership of the doubling potential to someone else. So you are going to give 100 to someone, and now they are in possession of the 100 units and they can go about doubling them. But also, you spent a day of your life, because we've just said you earn £100 a day. You spent a day of your life to initially earn that money. You've now lost that day because you worked and earned the money. And then you've now lost the doubling potential because you gave that money to somebody else. And you're going to have to spend another day to earn the money back. So in actual fact, that thing that you bought for £100 cost 2 days of your life and potentially £2 million worth of doubling opportunities. So it's not don't buy, it's just know that when you buy, it's worth it. It's worth your time. It's worth your money. And just sit with that for just a minute. Think of the last purchase you bought. And if it was a purchase worth £100, was that worth 2 or more days of your life? And if you start to think about things like that, then you move away from the desire for unconscious consumerism because you're more conscious about it. You now consider every purchase an investment. And of course, you know, you've got your own free will. There is the influence of adverts, but you're still going to be in the buying game because you're going to need food. You're going to need utilities. And they're as fundamental as your travel costs. Maybe there was a celebratory meal that you wanted to have with a loved one, and the memories would be worth that time. If it was something that you didn't really need, or worse, ended up at the back of a cupboard or a drawer unused, then was it really worth it? If you have children, this is probably going to be a bit controversial, but if you have children, think about the money you spend on their toys. And what if you could not only spend your time with them instead of the toy, but the money that you would have spent on the toy, you could invest. Then all of a sudden, your children could have an investment pot. You could have memories, and your children could have memories of you being together. Now, that doesn't mean to say never buy your children a toy, but how many toys do they need? Think about Christmas and birthdays when they get so many toys from so many people, if you're lucky enough that they do. And then they want to open and play with the first toy, but you're saying, no, put that toy down and open this next toy. So just think, there's no judgment here. Please, no, there's no judgment here. And again, if you're young and you're single, then your buying habits are going to be completely different. And that's fine, because that's based on your priorities. Your values are different. Your purchasing habits are different, but you can still be conscious about those purchasing decisions and those purchasing priorities, if you like. When you start a family or you live together with a partner, then your values can shift and your priorities change, but you can still be conscious about the buying decisions that you make. And when you manage to bring this idea of conscious spending into your life early enough, the changes you make when you start to have a family are then decisions that are made out of choice and not out of necessity, because you already have these habits in play. And that's why I bring it up, because there are so many young people out there in great jobs, and congratulations. And if you're one of them, well done. But what are you doing about your future? Are you just enjoying life now? And again, no judgment, that's perfectly fine. But what are you doing about making sure that you're building up reserves for when your priorities might change a little down the line. One of the lessons that I think we've forgotten from our parents and our grandparents, and they knew all too well, is that it takes time to buy the things you want. Now, the way that they did it was because there wasn't this mass availability of credit. It literally took time to buy something you want because they had to save up the money to buy it. So it took time in that way. It took time to save up to get the money. But actually now it takes time because we gave up time to earn the money. Our parents also, and our grandparents also, had to face the fact that sometimes you can't just have what you want immediately because they didn't have the access to loans. And so it's given them a habit. It's given them maybe some negative values about money. You know, money doesn't grow on trees. How many of your parents or grandparents used to say that to you? But the purpose of marketing, you have to understand, is to separate you from your hard-earned cash. And you can buy anything you want, but remember that for us, it also takes time to buy the things that you want, because you're spending that time working rather than maybe spending time with family or friends or pursuing a passion. So just think that through. And if you can hold on to that thought, then you can make that switch between conscious or unconscious consumerism and conscious spending. So guess what? Time is ticking and it's the end of an episode again. And before I summarize the point of this episode, I want to leave you with a powerful tool that you won't even need a spreadsheet for this one. Think about every purchase you make going forward as costing you time and money. Get precise about it if you want to. Work out your hourly rate if you want to, or your daily rate. And then you can use that to say, this dress or this jacket cost me X amount of hours. Or just simply use the £100 or 100 units that I mentioned. And if you have a really bad spending habit, then maybe you need to think that £100 or whatever has cost you 3 days as a way to slow you down. But just bring more consciousness into every purchase. Understand how buying the product or the service that you're going to buy is going to add value and help you start living the life you really want to live sooner. And if it does, great. But if it doesn't, it's just a purchase to fill a hole or a gap in your life, as opposed to a gap in your wardrobe. It's a comforter to make you feel good, but it's at the expense of your time and not contributing to the life you really want to be living. Maybe think twice, that's all. Put it in your basket and then maybe put your basket down, walk away, have a think, and then come back and see if you still want it. And that can be your basket in the shopping center. It could be your basket online. You don't have to click buy now immediately. Be more conscious about your spending and have a really powerful tool in your armory. Can you have a tool in your armory? Have a weapon in your armory, a tool in your toolbox that will help you create the wealthy life you want to live much sooner. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And of course, please subscribe, rate, review, like, love, share, tick, heart, everything this show, and then make sure that you're taking action on your spending habits and making them more conscious. I'm always happy to help. Please just get in touch and we can have a chat. So the purpose of this episode was to bring us back to planting a seed or three. The purpose of marketing and sales is to separate you from your hard-earned cash, because that's how our economy works. But when that happens, it transfers the opportunities that money can bring you to the seller. Now, if you're a business owner, that's exactly what you want. You want the opportunities to come to you because that's how you're going to create your wealthy life. And that's perfectly fine. And I'm not suggesting that you stop marketing for businesses and making your business successful. I'm simply saying, be more conscious in your own purchases so that you can have the wealthy life that you want. So the purpose of marketing is to separate you from your hard-earned cash, the time that that is worth. Your values and what you want to buy will change with age and experience, and that's perfectly fine. But if you employ the technique of conscious spending throughout your life, you will then have the power to choose what you want moving forward, rather than only being left with one option, because the opportunities have moved to someone else. And don't let swapping money for stuff that might make you happy mask the fact that you might be missing something else in your life, and potentially that you're stressed because you don't have money. How many people I've met, either by going into their properties when they've been repossessed or working with them and looking at their budgets, and they are struggling financially and yet they're still buying things. How many tenants' properties have I been into that is absolutely full of bags of things lined up round the walls, stuffed into the cupboards, and maybe when they've left, still stuffed into the loft or the cupboard outside the shed or whatever, and they've spent money on stuff they so didn't need that they've left it behind in a cupboard or they've left it behind in a shed outside. Don't let swapping money for stuff to make you happy mask the fact that maybe the fundamental problem is financial, and you can dig into that. So we're going to pick up on this again, and we're going to follow through with this idea of time and money in the next episode, and ask the question, is time or money more valuable to you? And we're going to challenge this concept of what's more important, because we're all led to believe one thing when maybe it's something else. And I'd really like to thank you for spending your precious time with me to listen to A Wealthy Life. My name's Vicky Boucher, and I hope that this episode has brought you some much needed whoosh in your life.